Hello, world, and welcome back to my cave today because I didn't want to turn on the lights. It's 5 in the morning, and I'm sitting down here with my chart to try to have maybe a little bit more brief of a video describing what I'm looking at in the morning and to kind of be more conversational about my approach to looking at a chart. So when I wake up in the morning, I pull this up to have a look at the mandala. And basically, I'm going to go through briefly with the energy updates. When I go through each of these planets, I'm kind of meditating over the things that it signifies and the things that it's kind of associated with as far as the techniques that I've learned over time with astrology. So to begin, my eyes are always drawn to the sun and the moon. They're the luminaries, as they're called. And the sun and the moon are here. Sun is in Scorpio. The moon is in Aquarius, right next to my natal moon. And so sun and moon being in these two signs, the sun in Scorpio is very deep, transcendent. The reason that we say that is because the sun is kind of representative of the ideal to which we strive. It's like the story line. And in Scorpio, it's slow evolution and things being revealed to us. It's a little spooky. So hence this time of year being one that we celebrate the dead. With the moon in Aquarius, see, the moon moves around very quickly. It'll go through a sign in about 2 days, 2.5 days. So the moon is in Aquarius. Aquarius is a humanitarian, revolutionary, rebellious. It can also be detached, and because it's ruled by Saturn. So we might not be feeling so attached to our emotions, depending on how this affects your chart. As an Aquarius moon myself, it's hard for me to distinguish that, whether or not I'm kind of feeling into my emotions, because I'm often much more contemplative and objective with my emotions. So the way this seems to be coming up for me, it's kind of being revealed to me how I'm philosophically going to deal with this shift in my employment, because it's my 6th house of day-to-day activities where Scorpio is residing over, and Aquarius is my 9th house of philosophy, higher education, foreign travel, and expansive ideas like that. And I've been looking at this priestess called Pythia. because it came up in one of John Vervaeke's episodes, the 4th episode actually, which we're going to be filming this weekend. And it's funny because Pythia was the oracle of Delphi, one of them, I suppose. And I have, well, they have an asteroid called Pythia. And of course, I have that next to my moon and next to my Saturn, all in Aquarius in the 9th house with my midheaven. And so I think I'm supposed to look into this archetype more, the priestess Pythia. So this is how signs and symbols show up in your life. And especially if you're attuned to something like astrology, some sort of divinatory practice, you find that answers kind of just fall in your lap. So yeah, that's what this feels, is pretty divine for me. Intellectual. There's a lot of mental uncoverings because Mercury is here as well in Scorpio. So this is kind of like detective work for me. Venus here, the creativity, how we express love in our life. So all that's happening for me in my 6th house, even though it's here showing in the 2nd house. The 2nd house is because the chart that I have drawn, and at the time that I drew it, see where the sun's at. Scorpio will be the next constellation on the horizon as the sun's coming up, but I'm awake before the sun's up. So it hasn't moved. Scorpio hasn't moved onto the ascendant line yet. It's still Libra, which is why the zodiacal wheel is oriented this way. So this is a transit chart for today. After the sun and the moon, I usually go through all the personal planets, Mercury and Venus, which just so happen to be with the sun. Mars is up here in Gemini. So since Mars is still at 25 degrees, still stationed in Gemini, I want to be thinking about the houses that are ruled by Mars. Mars rules over Scorpio and Mars rules over Aries. So for this chart, Mars is ruling over the 2nd and the 7th house. And it's kind of in this standstill stage. It's frozen. It's about to turn around and go back. So this is kind of that montage in the film where the character is watching their whole life pass by, you know. I'm going to go make new decisions because maybe my life wasn't as fulfilling as I wanted, or maybe my life is so beautiful that I just want to get back to those people in it. Whatever it is, there's a slideshow before us all. Because Gemini is to do with thoughts, maybe even early childhood thoughts, because it's playful and Geminian. Okay. So I'm thinking about Mars as it relates with, for me, it's my 6th house, which is Scorpio, and my 11th house, which is groups, communities, organizations. And my day-to-day activities are changing because I'm now kind of in limbo. I'm kind of in a little bit of a purgatory that I've brought upon myself. I want this because that necessity is going to breed innovation. So that's the personal planets, right? So I went through Venus and Mercury. They're in Mars's sign. Where's Mars? Mars is here in Gemini. It's actually Mercury's sign. Mars rules over which houses? And the reason I'm focused on Mars because it's at a standstill. It's kind of penetrating. So Mars is also associated with cutting. So if cutting makes more sense for you, pruning, severing things, splitting things up, that's Martian. It's the god of war, so it's oftentimes involved in conflict. I'd say that this is an extinguished part of that conflict, maybe the thought process that prevents a big explosion. Okay, Mars, and then we go to Jupiter. What's Jupiter doing? Jupiter just moved out of Mars's sign of Aries into Pisces, its home sign. So it's kind of zen, floating in Piscean waters, deep, wise. There's, Jupiter is luck and fortune. It's this great benefic planet. And in its home sign, it gets a little mystical and dreamy. So, I feel like I'm back in the fantasy vase and just swimming around in ideas. What could I do? I went to the beach yesterday and the water was perfect and flat, and I was able to get out in the water. And Jupiter in Pisces evokes the image of the ocean for me. Neptune is associated with Poseidon, so big, deep, expansive waters. Where we came from, that's what Pisces is. So that's what Jupiter's doing. And then Saturn, I'm just going to go through the inner planets because the ancients didn't have Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And really, those planets kind of just bring up the energy in different words. But sometimes I sit and listen to myself after a reading and I'm just like, wow, I said the same thing a million times, but it's from different planets and placements that you get this kind of recurring message. So just going to go with Saturn and Jupiter. I already did Jupiter. Saturn, where's Saturn? In Aquarius. Saturn's at home in Aquarius. So I like to think about Aquarius as the archetype of someone that defines themselves by what they are not. Therefore, they can often be the black sheep, the oddball. And this can be an advantage or it can be a disadvantage depending on how you look at it. If you look at it as nobody is like me, I'm all alone in this world, it's a pretty dark way to take on this Aquarius energy. But Aquarius can also say, I'm very skilled at this one thing that nobody else knows how to do. How can I utilize that skill that I have in order to be a net positive for the group? Or how can I use that way? How can I use the tools that I have to serve the collective? So that's that's the energy that Saturn's sitting in right now. Saturn's about our discipline. It's putting in effort. And the way that this comes up for me is an objective perspective on what I'm, chipping away at, what I'm starting to work towards. So that's the overall energy. I know it's going to depend on where these planets are in your chart, whether or not this is helpful. But this is what I go through every morning in order to be able to apply this information to your chart. So now that I have this backdrop of energy, I know what the world's like today before the sun's even up. But I don't know how these are interacting in your personal chart because I don't know which houses they're in. So all I have to offer is my own personal experience with them. And then I can incorporate that into a reading for someone. So I hope that information is interesting for you. I'm going to go through now and maybe decide on a placement to cover every day or every week, just depending on how much astrology is happening. This is a pretty big month, which is why I think I feel the urge to provide people with information. We've got eclipses that are happening. The way we know where the eclipses are happening, it's these nodal points, the horseshoe looking thing there and there. They're at 13 degrees of Taurus and Scorpio. Those nodes are the points at which eclipses occur. So it's kind of this place in the sky where either the moon moves through the sun and the earth, or a point in the sky where the earth moves through the path of the moon to the sun. So in one way, the sun is blocked out, and in another instance, the moon is blocked out. The light of the sun to the moon. by the obstruction of the Earth being in between them. So that's the eclipse points. Eclipses are pretty intense energy. They are kind of where we got astral omens from, because the ancients could see lunar eclipses and would say, oh, a king's probably going to die, which, they came to this conclusion after gathering data over many centuries. Maybe it was the case that some guy was just like, I'm going to say that the king's going to die when there's a lunar eclipse. But I think we often discredit our elders because they didn't have internet, because they didn't have traffic stoplights and cars. And so we just imagine that they were just completely dumb, that they don't, or that they didn't, the life lessons that they had could never apply to our own life. But you couldn't be any more wrong, because life continues in cycles. It repeats itself. And even if we're not living the same life as our elders, they were gleaning information from their environment. We're always taking more information in from our environment. And it just so happens that our elders were much more in tune with nature. They had to be, because they weren't blocking themselves off in houses that won't allow a draft to come through. So they were actually very wise, and they do have a lot of information to pass on to us through these archetypes and these memes that have survived centuries. All right, I'm going to get off my soapbox because this is going way longer than I wanted to. I'm going to try to get more succinct, but I hope that you enjoy this day. I think I will. It looks great. It looks fun. Maybe a little mysterious, but I would say, expect the unexpected during this time period with the lead up to the eclipse this weekend, or just at the beginning of next week. All right, everyone. I will be back tomorrow. See ya.